Hey, what's up, guys? Andrew here, back with another video for you. Today, though, I'm going to dive into a more vlog style video about my real estate journey on how I was able to build up a portfolio of around 2 million bucks worth of real estate by around the time I was 30, just after 30 years old. So stick around for that if you want to check it out. It will be more just dating the numbers, how I got deals, what I bought for refinancing, all those kind of different terms around real estate that you may or may not know. So I hope you guys are excited. I'm excited to share my story. I haven't really told too many people this before, so hopefully you guys are excited to come along for the ride today. And let's get into how I built a $2 million portfolio by the age of 32. So before I even started real estate investing, this was like back in about 2020. I got my first real job out of university, and I was working for an engineering firm at the time. It was a local shop, and it was kind of just like getting my feet wet in the industry, figuring out what my actual career wanted to be. And I was actually earning a decent amount of money at the time. I was earning $16 an hour, which may not seem like a lot today, maybe it does, but for me, it was a ton of money. I'd never made that much money in my life before up to that point. So it was around 36,400 bucks for the year. And when I broke that down, I'm looking at a place to rent for the time being with my friend because I had just finished university. So we're looking for rentals, and I went and saw a couple places and thought, you know what? My mom was living here too. She's kind of in that whole kind of entrepreneurial spirit. She's like, Andrew, if you are going to do this, maybe you should go ahead and just buy your own place. We're not going to help you with the down payment, but if you go buy a place, you can afford one, something small to start, then you're not going to be paying rent out to somebody else. You can actually maybe rent out to your friend who wants to live with you instead of actually going and paying rent yourself. So I thought, Mom, that makes a lot of sense. Let's look around and see what's going on. And at that time, my budget wasn't very big. I didn't have a lot of money saved up. I had been working from December of 2012 into like May of 2020 of 2013. So roughly about 6 months I had worked, and I saved a lot of money though because I knew I wanted to do this. I had this kind of plan in action. I went through probably like 30 houses, honestly, some garbage ones at the time, like talking like under $100,000 for a house back then in 2013 in St. Catharines, which is like an hour from Toronto. And I ended up finding a nice little 3 bedroom plus like a little small office, 2 bath starter home in northern St. Catharines. And it needed work. It needed a lot of updates, and there was shaggy carpet and some funky wallpaper and all that stuff. But I said, you know what? This is something I can afford. I can get into the real estate market. I didn't even know like I wanted to be a real estate investor at this time. I just wanted a house for myself and for my friend. At the time, there's only two of us, and we wanted to go somewhere that we could kind of have no limits what we want to do. We want to have a couple of parties, we want to have some friends over. We're not going to have like neighbors giving us issues or calling the landlord on us. So it seemed like a better opportunity for us if one of us could buy a property. And just it happened to be me. I took the plunge and I went ahead and I bought for $121,000, 3 bed, 2 bath, small little starter home in St. Catharines. And at that time, for the numbers, mortgage was 550, property tax was 150, insurance about 70 bucks a month. So all in for those expenses, we're going about $770 a month. And I know that sounds so crazy cheap compared to what it is today, but back then that was the going rate, and like nobody knew the real estate market in Canada or specifically in the GTA was going to do what it did and has exploded, right? Thanks to population demand. Time for another video for that later on. But anyway, back then it seemed like a lot of money, and like I was only making 16 bucks an hour. So my take home at the end of the week, let me just do the math here real quick. 16 bucks an hour times 40, 640 bucks a month. So 2,500 bucks a month after tax, 1,700. So that was over like a third of my budget was going to my housing. So not great. But the caveat here is that I had a buddy who was with me on this deal, and like not actually on the deal, but he was willing to move into the property with me. We were good friends, went to university together, knew each other for a long time. So yeah, awesome. Come live in this property. We'll do it together. And then he ended up paying me about 400 bucks a month in rent. And on top of that, he found another guy in the area who's now works and still lives in that area who wanted to come in and needed a place to stay as well. So he was paying 400 bucks a month rent. So all in, 800 bucks a month coming into my pocket for rent, 770 in expenses. So at that time, I was kind of living for free. Now I know people are going to say, hey, there's other expenses like maintenance. There's you have to have like kind of maintenance on the property. There's going to be utilities, all that stuff. I wanted to keep that stuff out of the video just to keep it more baseline simple. So we're only going to be including mortgage, property tax, insurance for the main expenses for all these properties that we're going to go through. But those other expenses do exist, yes, but just keep it very simple and very beginner level for this video. I want to just keep it very, very low key. So we'll include those three things plus any kind of rent that comes in, and we'll go from there. Cool, good. So yeah, I'm up about 50 bucks a month in that kind of regard for my first property. Again, didn't want to be a real estate investor at that time, but I was reading books on the side. I wasn't really actually investing that money that I was getting as rent. I was kind of just in that phase of my life where I was going to the bar a little bit and just having fun with my friends and going to see basketball games and hockey games and all that stuff. So I was spending more of that rental income than I was actually putting towards the house, which you got to live your life. And I understand, but I ended up eventually leveling up my knowledge base. I was investing in some books, some courses, mentoring. So some of that money did go to good use, but at the time I didn't have that kind of spark to be a real estate investor. I knew like, hey, this is good. They're covering my expenses. So that's a cool thing, but I didn't know what I wanted to do long-term in real estate. And that was until I kind of saw the beginning of this kind of real estate kind of market going up. And fast forward 4 years later, I ended up selling a property for about 200,000, which means that I made about $80,000 in profit. And when you sell your primary residence or where you live in Canada, you can sell it tax free. So that's $80,000 of tax free money I was able to pull out of the property when I sold. You can do the similar thing in the US. I believe it's called a 1031 exchange. There's some kind of way to just take that money and roll it into the next property without paying taxes on it in the United States as well. But anyway, I netted 80K and I was like, hey, cool. I was married this time with my wife, Sarah, and we were looking for a home, but we decided to sell our house. We thought the market was crazy hot, wanted to cash in. We thought, man, 80,000 is a ton of money, more than we've ever seen in our lives. So let's do that. Let's get that cash and let's try to like find something to buy with that money after we secure our property sale. So we did that, moved into the mom and dad's basement for a couple months while we looked, and that was a great experience. And we ended up finding a 5 bedroom, 2 bath house in Thorold, which is about 30 minutes south or 10 minutes, sorry, 10 minutes south of St. Catharines. It's kind of another small city. And we ended up again, 5 bed, 2 bath, 2 kitchens. So it was an up and down unit. So it was split 3 up top, 2 down below. So you could rent out the bottom and live on the top, which is what we did. So this idea of kind of renting out a part of your home, or house hacking, as it's called, kind of followed us to our next property. And we decided, you know what, this is a good opportunity. This is a good kind of buy. The bones of the house were really good, very good structure. And it was well kept by an older couple. So we thought, let's do this. Let's jump in. We bought for $290,000. We put 20% down. So in Canada, if you put 20% down, you don't have to pay the CMHC tax, which is just kind of an insurance on the property. Because if you put less than 20% down, you don't have enough skin in the game in their eyes. And they're like the regulating body for mortgages in Canada. So they make you pay like an insurance tax on your property, and they just tax it onto the mortgage payment. So if you put 20% down, you don't have to do that. We did that, and we put about $58,000 down, plus some other cash for some lawyer fees and some closing costs. But out of that $80,000 profit, we had now used up almost 75% of that money. So we put a good chunk down this property. We moved in, and at that point, our mortgage was about $1,300, property tax was about $170, and insurance for the property was about $100. So all in, we're looking at $1,570 for the property expenses at that time in 2017. And again, maybe not a lot compared to today's, but back then it was for us. And we ended up renting out the basement though to help offset the cost of that for $1,100 a month. And again, you have all those utilities and some maintenance, whatever. We're just not going to include that for today's video, just because it's a little bit more outside the scope of what I want to talk about. So all in, we're sitting there, we have this new property, right? It's a bigger property and it's in Thorold, and we're out of pocket about $470 a month in terms of housing costs, which is pretty good. Like housing is usually your biggest expense. And now I'm starting to kind of get an idea of like what the actual possibilities are with real estate. If you can kind of rent out a piece of your house, if you can kind of bring in some income. And I'm starting to understand like at this point, what an income producing asset is versus something that just takes away from your bank, or like a vehicle or a trailer or camper, or something that credit card debt, whatever, it takes away from your bottom line. This property is actually adding to our bottom line and actually making it cheaper for us to live. On the flip side, yes, we had to become landlords. We had to go through and learn about the forms and the tenant board and all the different things that go along with that. But that was work I was willing to do to be able to offset my living costs to the point where we could do other things with that money and enjoy our lives a little bit more. We got a dog. We went on some vacations. We got to visit family and friends out of town a lot more. A lot of Sarah's family lives up north in Ontario, so it takes a little bit of cash and time to go do those kind of trips. So we were able to thankfully do that kind of stuff because we're kind of offsetting our housing expenses by having renters in the basement. Now, we didn't love that there was only one set of laundry in the basement. We had to go through their space to kind of do laundry. So that was one thing we said, we're never gonna do that again. And we're learning all the time. Different things come up. You have to figure out ways to fix things. You have to figure out ways to get contractors in. So a huge learning curve. And I was just kind of fumbling my way through becoming a landlord and actually figuring out what works and what doesn't. That's 2017. It was a good year. That was March of 2017. And then we ended up buying property number two at the time in the end of 2017. So at the end of 2017 in Canada, there was actually some changes coming in the lending sector about what you can actually afford as a mortgage thanks to a new stress test. And a stress test basically just looks at your income versus your debt and kind of spits out a number that you can actually be approved for a mortgage through your lender. And since the rules were being changed, it was becoming more difficult to qualify. We decided to try to pull the trigger and buy another property before it came too difficult, and it was kind of outside of our income bracket at the time to be able to buy these next properties. So we ended up going in and doing what's called a purchase plus improvements on a property, and it was a property that needed a new foundation on the basement. There was some cracks that needed to be dealt with. So we ended up not having $20,000 to do that of like our own cash. We had enough to buy the property, but this 20,000 of work that we did, we had to actually tack it onto the mortgage. And it was just added the mortgage once the work was completed. We got the mortgage for the house plus the work. It was just kind of tacked on to the end, which is a cool way to do it. Check it out if you haven't heard about a purchase plus improvement in Canada before. But we bought our property. It was a 2-bed, 1 bath. It had been recently renovated in St. Catharines, Western St. Catharines, for $260,000. We put 20% down again, and roughly, or sorry, we put 10% down at this one. We bought 26,000 roughly, so we had 22,000 left from our 80K on our first house that we bought and sold, and we put about $4,000 of our own cash in. So we did have to pay the CMHC fees on this one, but we said it's okay. We just want to get the property under our belts. And we actually moved into this property on December 17th, hosted a Christmas party on December 24th. If you want a way to get your house clean and set up and unpacked, host a party with all your friends and family, you'll get the motivation real quick to get it done. So at that time, we then had one property that we lived in ourselves, with the mortgage being $1,200, property tax about $150, and insurance on the property about $100. So all in for that new property, that 2-bed, 1-bath that we now lived in, was about $1,450 a month. And there's no rent coming into that property. It was just a property that we wanted to live in. It's our living cost now. So $1,450 for us to live. But what we were able to do then, because we had vacated our 3-bed, 1-bath unit in our old property, we could then rent out the entire thing and still make some more cash for our portfolio. And what we ended up doing there is we upped the rents. We were getting $1,100 a month in the basement by itself. We ended up having those tenants leave and just kind of doing some small repairs, put some new flooring in, kind of spruce it up a little bit, and reinvest that money. And then we ended up getting the whole property rented, so all 5 bedrooms, all 2 units, for $2,600 a month. And at that time, our expenses were $1,570, so we had a net profit of $1,030 every month. And again, we're paying $1,450 in our property to live in our new place, and we've got $1,030 coming in rent, like extra after expenses on our other property. So our net for our portfolio at the time was roughly negative $420. So out of our like salaries, we had to come up with $420 a month to pay for our kind of housing costs in 2017. Pretty good. Again, keeping the housing costs low is such a huge advantage in life. If you can keep that expense low, you get so much further ahead because you have other things you can invest your money, you can compound interest, and you can just kind of supersize your wealth if you can do that and find a way to keep your expenses low. So we're still kind of helping ourselves house hack, but just from a different property with us in a different one. And then we moved to 2019. We kind of stayed there for a couple years. Everything was quiet. We had this nice run up in property value in St. Catharines in the GTA. And we ended up buying another property in Western St. Catharines. There's a reason for that, because in my kind of years of learning and understanding how real estate works, where property demand is driven, a lot of times when you have new infrastructure, new builds, new roads, new networks of transportation, you see houses follow. And what was happening in St. Catharines at that time, there was just approval for a new GO train or a new like high-speed rail network for taking people from Niagara into Toronto. And I thought, well, man, if this comes, this is going to really impact the property values everywhere else around Toronto where they put these. The cities have kind of just grown and exploded around them because you can then move out of the big city and still get an effective commute to work. So I said, let's just double down on this. Let's buy another property in that area within like 1 kilometer of where this GO train is going to be. So it's still walkable for those who want to walk to it. And hopefully we get that lift in property values 5 years down the road. So this is 2019, and we bought another home. We had to refinance the home that we bought in Thorold in 2017, which just means we had to go get a new mortgage and take some cash out of the property and use it to buy a next one, which is like the craziest powerful thing that real estate can do for you. If you refinance a property, you're effectively taking like equity that you built up over time, So when your mortgage gets paid down and the house goes up in value through appreciation, you have this equity wall kind of building up. And we took that equity out and we used it to then go buy another property that we could live in, which is like the craziest thing ever, using the bank's money or the housing money. It's not even like real, it's just there for the taking, basically, as long as you use it responsibly and not to buy stupid crap like credit card debt and going on trips. You want to do it and buy other income producing assets. So we bought another house. And this was a 4-bed, 3-bath home. We bought it for 435 in 2019. We moved in, and the mortgage there was 1,400 bucks. Yeah, property tax 250, insurance 180. So we're all in for that property for housing costs at 1830 a month. And again, we have now 2 rentals because we moved from one place to the next. So we rented out the previous place as well. So our rental portfolio was growing. Our actual principal residence, we're using that as well. And for the rentals, we had 2,500 bucks of rent coming in from the Thorold property versus 1,700 bucks of expenses. So we're plus 800 on that property. And the one we just vacated, that was a 2-bed, 1-bath. We had about 1,450 in expenses every month, and we had someone come in at $1,600 a month in rent. So we're plus about 150 on that property, which gives us a roughly 950 bucks of actual extra income we can use to offset our housing costs. Again, we ended up being about 1,000 bucks roughly out of pocket for housing costs. So a little bit more, we're kind of creeping up there now, but we bought a little bit of a bigger home with a little bit more space, 4-bed, 3-bath. We only have 2 people living there. But what we wanted to do, what we have been doing, is renting out the extra space on Airbnb. So again, we're still house hacking, still kind of making it work and adding kind of income from our asset. We're not just letting it be a debt to us. We're not just paying it. We're going to get some cash from it. Okay. So that's 2019. And now we've got 3 properties, 2 rentals plus our own, and plus an Airbnb in our own. So I'm learning about Airbnb, how that platform works, what's a good listing, how to take good photos, all that kind of stuff, just kind of skill stacking throughout the years, be able to do this. And at this time, I'm feeling pretty comfortable like running a rental portfolio. I know a lot of property management skills and a lot of contractors, feeling good about things. So we decide during COVID, and we probably wouldn't have done this if we hadn't had the experience in the years leading up to this, but I had a good conviction about the area. The COVID kind of pandemic hit and the real estate market took a big nosedive. And we said, you know what, this is a great opportunity for us. Let's buy another property. And so in 2020, when the market was kind of shut down, we were out looking for properties, looking for deals, kind of a little bit of what's called contrarian thinking. When everyone else is scared, be aggressive. When everyone else is aggressive, time to be scared and take some risk off. So we went risk on and bought another property in St. Catharines in Western Hills again, and bring our total up to 4 in 2020. And this was a 6-bedroom, 2 bathrooms, so 2 unit, 2 kitchens, 3 up, 3 down, 1 bathroom in each, and it's just separated. So there's shared laundry, and that's it. So it's perfectly set up for a duplex kind of setting. And we bought this property for $385, and we put roughly $77,000 down on this property, which is about 20%. And in order to do that, we had to refinance the property that we had bought in the year before for ourselves. So we got super lucky and super fortunate to have the housing market run up the way it did, where you can refi a property a year after buying it. And you can't always do that. It also depends on how much you put down initially. Like if you put down 50% of the property value, then yeah, you can access a bunch of equity because you only have 50% left on the mortgage of what the actual property is worth when you buy it. But if you have a nice run up in appreciation, like we have seen around the GTA in the last couple of years, then you can refi every couple of years and there's no problem. But that's not always the case. So you can't buy based on appreciation. You have to buy on cash flow, which is what we've been doing. And it's allowed us to grow our portfolio very nicely because you always have that buffer of cash, even though if property prices don't increase. Anyway, back to the property. We refied our property that we just moved into ourselves the year before, the 4-bed, 3-bath in 2019. And we ended up extracting about that 80K range we needed to buy this next property. Again, one property buys the next one. That property buys another one. So we're just kind of using properties to kind of fund a further expansion of the portfolio. We had a mortgage of 1,400 bucks on this one, property tax of 260, and insurance of about 230 because it's a bigger property, more people there, higher insurance cost. All in about 1,900 bucks in expenses, and we were able to rent the property out for $3,000, 1,600 upstairs, 1,400 downstairs. So we're netting about 1,000 bucks in or 1,100 bucks in profit on that property. So at that time, we're doing a good thing. We're just expanding the portfolio slowly. We're keeping our cash flow numbers very, very solid. And we're using that kind of extra cash to kind of help offset some of the bills in our own lives. And again, pay for things that we want to do in life. So when you have assets like this, you can actually pay for different expenses and you don't have to pay out of pocket. You don't have to put in a line of credit. You can say, hey, once this property has enough buffer like lined up for other kind of unexpected expenses that might come up, you can use a little bit of that cash to live on and have some fun. That's a good way to do it. Have assets produce income for you. Use that income to enjoy life. Go buy back your life, buy back your time, do whatever you want to do with that money. So now in 2022, we have a different kind of look in our portfolio. We actually sold one of our properties off, the one that was in Thorold, the 5 and 2 split. We wanted to kind of put some more money in the stock market. So we sold that property, but we still have around $2.4 million worth of real estate under the age. I'm 34 now, but we got this all done by 32. And now we're kind of just waiting to see what's next for us and on the journey. So right now the numbers look pretty good. And we have some buffer built in again. We've seen a crazy appreciation again, like I said, in GTA, and we would not have kind of gotten this kind of wealth if we hadn't jumped in and bought that first property though. So we're kind of setting ourselves up to take advantage of the opportunity that the market gave us. And yes, some of it is attributed to luck and just that's what it is. But there's also been a lot of research done along the years between myself and Sarah, just understanding trends, understanding what makes a good property, understanding how you can refinance and leverage one property into the next. All this stuff takes time to learn and time to build. If you're sitting there thinking, man, I can't even get one property, like you have to understand it takes years to kind of build a strong portfolio. And you're not in this to kind of buy and then sell right away. That's not how it works unless you're going to like flip homes or do kind of the burn model, which are different. If you want to be a buy and hold investor, you have to have a 10-year horizon. That Go train that I've been investing around hasn't even broken ground yet. They're still a couple years away from actually building the station. But I think that long term, it's going to just keep increasing my property value. So I'm okay with waiting and just holding the properties. And as long as they cash flow, they're bringing in money, I'm good. Even if it was a net cash flow of zero, I'm fine with that. If they pay for themselves, if someone else is willing to pay me to live in that home and I provide a good value to them of giving them a safe, reliable home to live in, I'm good with making no money. Just pay down the mortgage for me. And in long-term goal, I will be fine with that kind of wealth that's creating with me. So the numbers in 2022 right now, the Airbnb that we have in our actual own property has been kind of steadily gaining traction. As soon as you get that superhost status and you understand how listings attract different people, different clients, what to actually include, what not to include, what to focus on, what not to focus on, how to kind of profile different amenities in the area, how to kind of turn up and turn down the actual cost per night when there's different events in town. It's a learning curve, and Airbnb can be very powerful if you understand those kind of trends. But again, it just takes time to learn those skills and stack them on top of each other. The numbers right now at our property, we have expenses of around $2,000 and we bring in about 750 of income. So we're at a negative 1250 right now on our property that we live in right now, which is fine. We understand that it's going to be the biggest kind of strain on our personal finance. We've got 2 properties kind of help offset those costs. 2-bed, 1-bath in Western St. Catharines. We got a $2,000 coming in rent and 1150 in the expense column. So we're net positive 850 on that property. The other property, 6-bed, 2-bath, a double unit. We have about $3,000 coming in rent and 1840 in expenses. We're positive 1160. When you add all that up, we are roughly 760 positive across the 3 properties when you just take into consideration mortgage, property tax, and insurance. Again, yes, there are some other expenses to pay for. We do have a property manager for one of the properties. We do pay for lawn care services for the properties because we want them to be in good shape and have contractors come in and fix things and keep them in good repair. I'm not trying to buy up these kind of properties and then just leave them and let them fall into disrepair. That's not my game plan here. I provide a value to people in my mind. I want them to have a nice, safe, secure property to live in. And that's the exchange in value. It's a win-win here for the renter. It's a win for me as the landlord. We're both getting what we want, right? So we have income kind of helping offset and build the portfolio. We do have some equity in the property still. We could extract things to run up in property values. We have seen in Canada, though, specifically in Ontario, the property prices come back down to earth thanks to the kind of economic tightening, the interest rate increase we've been seeing lately. So we're kind of playing this kind of waiting game right now. We're kind of diverting some assets into other kind of categories and just kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. But the plan is to keep kind of growing the property portfolio and just keep doing it one property at a time, focusing on cash flow, focusing on good population data of where to invest, where are people going, where are they migrating to, where are the strong job growth areas, any transportation improvements in those areas is huge for real estate potential, and just kind of slowly kind of picking away and finding a good property, good bones, good neighborhood. That's the biggest thing. Location, location, location. You've said it millions of times in books and probably on podcasts. You probably heard it. Buy in a good area and you eliminate a ton of the headaches. You attract a better quality tenant. You attract better quality contractors and you're more reputable as a landlord. And the neighbors kind of help you kind of take care of their property and they want to have a good property in the area you want a good property in the area. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody if you can invest in a great area. Other than that, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider subscribing, hit the like button if you got some value out of the video today. Again, a little bit different style, just kind of profiling what the property scene is like. And just to kind of leave it off at there, the properties right now that we have, all in, they're worth about $2.4 million across the three of them. And plan is to kind of take it as far as we need to kind of offset our kind of living expenses and cover everything. And once we can actually live on the properties full time, that's probably when we're going to end up kind of scaling back and kind of stopping and just focusing and switching gears on mortgage pay down to then invest into some other assets like the stock market, crypto world, building businesses, that kind of thing. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I will see you guys on the next one.